In for Jalen Rose, we have the honor. We have been bestowed with the presence of the great Ryan Russillo.
What's up? You know what? I've heard a lot of people, though, on the show this week, and you've talked them all up. So I think you can't be as complimentary about every one of us that fill in, because then I don't know if it's real or not.
Well, you're the only person that watches the other shows, so it works for everybody else. Thank you for calling me out. I'm entrapped. I'm enraptured in the Jimmy Butler thing. I'm going to be honest. I feel like Jimmy Butler held us all hostage with non-news that we had to update every single day on these programs. But today there is real news. Not only did he play in practice, not only did he trash talk the players and then the front office and then walk out of the gym, and then not only did he walk into an interview with Rachel Nichols right afterwards, they canceled practice today, Ryan. They canceled practice. Jimmy Butler is a terrorist and a saboteur, and somehow after all of this, I like him more today. What is happening with Jimmy Butler and the Timberwolves?
This is tough. I'm really conflicted. You know, if you go over the entire timeline, I was very pro Jimmy with Chicago. He was the better player. Derrick Rose comes back. He thinks it's his team. You're like, nah, dude, I'm just better than you now. The contract stuff was contentious with Chicago, so I've always been very pro Jimmy Butler, and I think he's a hell of a player, and he's a fighter. He's a competitor. I think he's accurate in pointing out some of the softness issues with the other young players on the team, and that's directed strictly at Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. Like, those guys have to be tougher. They have to be better players for this team to be as good as we think it can be on paper. However, this 24-hour orchestration, this entire campaign, where he goes off day one of practice for a reason, okay? It all leaks out, which is super interesting for us. And then when I saw the Rachel Nichols sit down, I go, are we running old B-roll of Jimmy Butler? I go, wait a minute, this is hours after the practice meltdown today?
Yes.
So he's sitting there calling out his team, which I would agree with him about, but he's not doing this to make the team better. He's doing this selfishly because it's like a little reminder, being like, hey, we heard you were about the 5-yard line with this Miami Heat deal. If you guys need a little reminder, this is how bad I can be. This is how difficult I can be. And I'll sit down with Rachel Nichols and air it all out. So this was another shot by he and his crew to get the hell out of Minnesota.
You're absolutely right. Like, what he did, he didn't show up to work. When he did show up to work, he yelled at his boss, and then he left his job early, and then immediately, something that you definitely should not do, went to the media and talked about it all, and somehow I like him more because of it. Like, tell me why I enjoyed this so much.
Because it's incredibly enjoyable. Like, if he's this good, and he's sitting there, and he's crushing everybody in this practice. Although I do wonder, like, which guy that lost to him would say, I was in awe? Like, when you think about some of the quotes, they're like, man, this was amazing. He embarrassed me.
We both know enough about basketball that I'm sure he probably easily could have lost that game, and this narrative is so different. Like, if there's probably a couple bounces or a couple of shots that didn't go in when he loses with the third stringers, it's not as sexy a story, let's be honest.
I'm expecting leak footage of him as a wolf. Just dribbling
like
through everybody, okay? Like, that's how this story is being told.
What do you do next if you're Jimmy Butler?
It's really simple, though, right? I mean, Jacoby, this is about he doesn't like the first contract offer. He wants out of there. I think even his teammates, from stuff I've heard, haven't loved him, even though he tried to shoot that down. And he even says numerous times in that interview yesterday with Rachel, where he's like, if I'm being honest, it can't be fixed. It can't be fixed. And he made sure that, like, yesterday was a reminder. That wasn't about motivating teammates. That was a reminder of this is how bad it can be every single day if you guys don't get me out of here.
He also said something I found really interesting in that interview with Rachel. Let's listen to it.
I know Tibbs. He's in there by himself. He locked his door, and he's smiling. He's laughing. Tibbs, I know you, man. I know you. He's like, yeah.
You think he's happy with what happened today?
Yeah. Tibbs like me. He likes confrontation. He may not tell y'all. He likes it.
So you were back in practice today. I assume you're going back tomorrow.
I am.
Should people think, because you are back in practice, that this is fixed or it's on its way to being fixed?
I think people think that. I would think that, too.
What do you think?
It's not. It's not fixed. Let's just be honest. It's not fixed.
Is it fixable?
It could be. It could be.
It's not fixed. Could it be fixed? It could be fixed. But here's the part I really love. He's like, I know Tibbs. Tibbs locked himself in his office and he's smiling. Do you think that Coach Thibodeau secretly enjoyed the whole thing?
Absolutely. There's no doubt. I mean, Tibbs is a fighter. Jimmy's a fighter. It's not just that Jimmy's a really good player and that's why Tibbs wanted him. He's somebody that he feels like could go at these young dudes. And I'll never forget a scout one of my best sources for years, and he's incredible on the draft. And when Wiggins was coming out, and he was pretty good that first year, and he goes, you guys in the media are morons about Wiggins. They're like, he's pretty good, but he's not going to be nearly the dude you think he's going to be. He just doesn't have that switch. And I thought, man, that seems to be really quick to kind of write him off. He was right about that. And he goes, for all the Towns stuff, and Towns is great. He was saying, look, Towns is a max guy. He's going to get all the money. He's incredible. He goes, laterally, it's just not there defensively. He's he's going to let his teammates down. And he was right about both of these guys. And I think Tibbs if the scout sees this, Tibbs sees this, and Tibbs is thinking, I need a personality more like Jimmy. The problem is if Tibbs isn't there for the long haul, his whole path may be more aligned with the guy that wants out than the owner that's still worried about Jimmy leaving without getting anything in return. So
watching all of this and all this drama, like there's a part of me that just loves reality television. I love talking about it. And I like Jimmy Butler more because of all this. But if you're at a GM of another team, say the Heat or the Rockets or whoever, you're at another GM that wants to bring in Jimmy Butler. Do you want to bring him in more after all this or less?
It's not less. It's not less. You would bring him in. And I always use the Dwight Howard theory. Think about this. Orlando still wanted to keep him. The Lakers wanted to keep him. Houston still wanted to keep him. So whatever Jimmy's done, to me, that's never been as bad as Dwight's indifference or immaturity. So no team's going, hey, we wanted him and now we don't because of this story, because these guys are just that hard to get.
Well, the whole Jimmy Butler saga will continue. I mean, there's no practice today, but something tells me we'll get another Woj report later today about something. But what it has done is also overshadowed one of the best preseason basketball games I've ever seen in my entire life. That might be hyperbole. I might just be caught up in the moment and recency bias. But watching the Lakers and Warriors, especially the first half yesterday, it was just fantastic. It had like a playoff feel. It was in Vegas. The court looked cool. Everyone was doing cool things. LeBron James was doing this, and he hit a three at the end of the half. Am I crazy to think that this was the best preseason game I've ever seen in my life?
Whenever we're ranking stuff, I didn't have this I don't have this in my Word document file of let me dig into how I've been keeping track of all you have this over Perth Jazz?
I can't name another preseason game I've ever watched, so this is probably one of one. This is the most memorable, I'll say that, because I can't remember another preseason game I've ever seen.
As of right, I remember going to UMass Boston and going to see LeBron play, and he sat it out as a rookie. And I think
that's that's where we are.
Right.
So a serious basketball question for you. One thing that definitely stood out to me about how the Lakers are playing, we know what the Warriors are, is the pace. Like, they were really pushing the pace, like a Pelican-like pace. Do you think they can continue this into the regular season and through it?
Great question, okay? Because this season is not just the preseason. This is the narrative-selling season around the NBA, where sources are leaking out to all of us, hey, we're looking at doing this, a little bit of this. Yep. To be like, hey, if we can just get Dion Waiters right, that kind of stuff. And then I read an article about it, be like, this doesn't make any sense. Here's the deal. If the Lakers were to run, that'd be terrific. It would make sense with the athletes they have on this team, these interchangeable parts, these long guys that are that would make sense. However, LeBron hasn't played at a slow pace because people have been holding him back. LeBron has been playing at a slow pace because he prefers to play that way, and he's been great at it. He loves to back it out, dissect what you're going to do with the help, and then eat you alive. So this wasn't like David Blatt years ago was like, hey, I'm sorry you want to run, LeBron, but we're going to play slower. And LeBron's like, okay, I'll defer to you. Of course not. So maybe they run, but for a decade and a half, it's been in LeBron's nature to slow things down.
I've definitely noticed the same thing. LeBron would much rather back it out, call a play, point people where they need to go, get a pick, go around that pick, back it out again, and then drive and kick to a shooter and watch that happen.
And it works.
It was so much fun to see. It was so much fun to see them go up and down. And this is something that I think is going to change a lot throughout the season. But let's say Luke Walton calls your phone, because I know you've got a lot of sources, a lot of NBA contacts.
Neighbors.
Luke Walton calls your phone and says, who should be my finishing five? Who would be the finishing five for the Lakers?
Well, it's Ingram, it's LeBron. I think Kuz, although the Kuzma center thing, how about when he's like, dude, I didn't even play center in high school, and now I'm going to play in the NBA?
It's like I've never jumped in my life.
The real decision will be, do they go small with Kuz, and then that means Ingram, and then that means LeBron, and then that's the point guard turn. I really think that's going to be the weirdest decision of closing with Rondo or Lonzo, because my guess would be LeBron already wants to close games with Rondo, and I think that makes it a little dicey because there's still an investment here in Lonzo. So It's really those four at small, and maybe it's Pope because of shooting.
I thought KCP looked really good yesterday, and I also
Yeah.
think that if you don't finish with Rondo, you have a very upset Rondo on the bench and in the locker room. Like, you know that covering the Celtics, that if Rondo doesn't finish games, he's not going to be happy about it. Do you agree?
Absolutely, and I do think though that's where LeBron I think has done a great job of the public face of what this franchise, what this roster ended up looking like. Because I've said, and nobody agrees with me, and it's fine, I don't think LeBron thought this was what the roster was going to be the start of the NBA season. I mean, if anybody thinks like, yeah, this is totally what his plan was. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I don't think this was the Lakers' plan, okay? And now this is what it is. And he has said all the right things, but if it's weird and they don't get off to a great start, which is totally possible, as they try to figure out, I think you're going to see different lineups all the time as Luke Walton tries to figure this thing out. But LeBron will be Team Rondo, because you can't, I don't know how, from any basketball sense, you could close with Lonzo and Rondo. So that's like the first soap opera, I would say, to be aware of, at least going into the year.
Yeah, I don't think LeBron thought this would be the roster starting the season, but I can promise you this will not be the roster that finishes the season. Something is going to happen in a trade or a buyout pickup thing that's going to have a different team for the playoffs. Coming up next on Jalen Jacoby, Ryan Russillo stays with us. We play Keep It Moving, and we'll ask the question, can Joel Embiid make Under Armour basketball cool?